Exactly. It's me, Bussy, and welcome back to my channel. Today is finally the day you've all been waiting for. Trust me, I've seen the comments and the DMs. We're going to be breaking down the truth about Drag Race España and addressing questions like, how does España compare to other international seasons? Is the judging fair? And what did I think of those first couple of episodes? We'll also be spilling a little bit of tea about that controversial elimination. And at the end of today's video, I'll be answering the question, is the season worth watching? Let's jump right in. Drag Race España follows the international formula we've seen from the likes of Thailand, UK, Holland, and Down Under. 10 queens in 8 episodes. Canada, strangely, was the only international season to premiere with 10 episodes. However, while bite-sized, some of these international seasons have not been easy to chew, especially in the judging department. Canada's Drag Race was universally criticized for unfair and unprofessional judging and for favoring contestants like Rita Baga from the start. They should have used their judging skills better. Maybe. In my opinion though, the bigger problem was that they tried to split judging responsibilities equally between 3 people instead of just choosing one primary host. As for Holland, which was the next international season, it seemed like they tried to fix what they messed up in Canada by placing a little more emphasis on Fred, who was the main host, but it felt like they still wouldn't give Fred enough power. RuPaul would still pop up from the World of Wonder basement to do challenge and runway announcements, in English, no less. And don't get me wrong, I loved Fred and Nikki as judges on that series, but they too made nonsensical decisions, like pushing aside fan favorites such as Cetterjane and Chelsea Boy. And now we're dealing with the dumpster fire that is Drag Race Down Under. I think we all thought that Ru and Michelle's presence was going to fix the judging problems on these international seasons, but ironically, I think they're the problem here. Ru has brought back queens like Art with no explanation, scandals have been mishandled, and then Michelle will tell queens like Elektra they had an amazing performance in the talent show, but then puts her in the bottom for a messy wig. The placements in almost every single episode of this season have just felt like a complete crapshoot. World of Wonder, I think, just hasn't been able to get it right lately, regardless of Ru and Michelle's presence. So naturally, I think a lot of people were wary of Drag Race España, even me. But this season might just be exactly what the franchise needed. And before I tell you why, a quick message from today's video sponsor, SurfShark, an award-winning VPN that can protect your identity online, block ads and trackers, and my personal favorite use, to gain access to a larger content library on Netflix. For example, US Netflix doesn't have access to RuPaul's Drag Race, but with the click of a button, I can surf on over to the UK and gain access to all 13 seasons. And look over there, they also have access to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Friends. They have servers all over the world, so wherever you want to surf to, they've got you covered. You can also use SurfShark to conceal your internet traffic from your internet service provider, who is watching everything you do. And I mean everything. Better yet, you can use SurfShark on all of your devices with unlimited device login. And there's no risk in just trying it out because SurfShark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you need a VPN or you're just looking for a better one, then click the link in my description and use code BUSSY to get 83% off and 3 extra months of SurfShark for free. Thank you, SurfShark, for sponsoring today's video. Let's start today's analysis by looking at the judging panel. Instead of Ru, we've got Supremme the Luxe, a drag scene staple who's been doing drag for over 20 years. She's released music you can find on her YouTube channel and has even been involved in theater since the age of 13. Unlike the Canadian and Dutch Drag Race spinoffs though, Supremme is truly the primary host. She does all of the video announcements and workroom walkthroughs, complete with brightly colored suits. She even borrows Ru's famous silence, clap to end deliberation on the panel and assert dominance. Situating Supremme as the Supreme in this series was the correct decision. I think a reality TV competition series like RuPaul's Drag Race needs a voice of truth to fall back on, someone to make the final decisions. And while Supremme plays that role well, I think she also works really well with the other judges on the panel. First, there's Anna Locking, a fashion designer who co-founded her first label in '97 and has put collections into Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week Madrid every year since '08. But she's more than just a designer. I also think she's an excellent and compassionate judge. For example, in episode 1, she compliments Hugáceo's gloves for making surrealist motions and compares the overall look to designs by John Galliano for Margiela. And then we have the Javiers, blonde and brunette. Javier Calvo and Ambrosi both started in the Spanish film industry as actors and now actually work together as film, television, and stage directors. Oh, and they're also dating. Their most famous projects include a film adaptation of the musical called La Llamada, and also they worked on a biographical series about La Veneno, which is on HBO Max. The producers made sure to emphasize their importance very early on. For example, in episode 2, the main challenge was a musical number, and the runway was based on a tribute to La Veneno. We see the this expertise come into play when Blonde Javier is critiquing Inti. He praises her runway for being a beautifully accurate historical metaphor, and is able to critique with credibility her performance in the main challenge by saying she didn't have enough oomph when performing on stage. Basically, what I'm getting at is that these judges kinda know their shit. They aren't there to mock contestants or show off how gay and sassy they are. They're just there to give professional opinions and to help the queens grow in the competition. Granted, we're only 3 episodes in and anything could happen, but I'm crossing my fingers because so far this panel is looking hot. Concerning the cast though, I don't know. Just kidding. They're fucking phenomenal. And they came to compete. Yes, we do have to address the typecasting. Okay, that happens in literally every season of Drag Race, but I think that that's okay because you kind of have to do it to create dynamic reality TV. For example, we have Arantxa Castilla-La Mancha, the less polished, charismatic underdog. Can she grow enough to win this competition? And Carmen Farala, a polished frontrunner, but is she more than pretty? Then there's Dovima, the cold, fashion-loving villain, but can she break out of her icy exterior? And of course, Dovima's foil and rival in this season, Sagittaria, our little fresh-faced, bubbly fashion queen. And guess what? They were roommates. Then we've got our artsy queen, Hugáceo, the experienced campy queen, Pupi Poisson, Inti, the independent thinker. We'll come back to her in just a minute. And then 2 really polished queens who I think are kind of serving as wild cards in the competition. Killer Queen and Drag Vulcano. Oh, and the big personality, the Macarena. Let's dive into the episodes and talk about our hots and rats. The premiere of España is essentially a tribute to the very first episode of Drag Race ever. They start with a photo shoot and then for the main challenge and runway have to create an outfit out of unconventional materials. I think it's a really great way to get a good take on the queens' personalities and also see how they work. In the top this week, we have Hugáceo, Carmen, and Sagittaria. The top 2 I completely agree with. Hugáceo's got this sad, surrealist clown thing going on, and Carmen is selling pure Versace sex. While both deserving, Hugáceo gets the win. And this felt really refreshing because I feel like we haven't seen the artsy queen win a design challenge in a while, at least on the US seasons. For example, if I were drawing parallels between US seasons 12 and 13, I'd say that Hugáceo's look aligned more with the likes of Crystal Method and Utica, both of whom lost to the simpler, more clean-cut looks from Gigi and Gottmik, whose I think were more similar to Carmen's look. In the bottom 3, we have Dovima, Pupi, and the Macarena. I was fine with this, but I do kind of want to point out that I think it's not total coincidence that Sagittaria and Dovima were basically placed opposite of each other, you know, being roommate rivals and all. Remember, Drag Race always has built-in storylines, and these are 2 characters that they don't want us to forget. Because my initial thoughts were that Dovima would just be safe. I think standing on the runway lined up with all the other queens, she doesn't really stick out as one of the worst. In fact, when she's just standing there, I kind of like it. She's giving me like bondage witch realness. However, she did trap herself in a net and literally could not walk on the runway, so I can understand that justification for bottom 2. Concerning our other bottoms, the Macarena's was easily my least favorite. It was really ugly. The material looked very cheap, and there was just something forward thinking about the look, which was actually kind of shocking considering she walked in that giant Sailor Moon-esque kind of costume. Pupi's is also bad. It's very bad, but she at least had a clean vision for what she was doing. Anyways, Dovima and Macarena lip sync, and we say adios to Macarena. Overall though, an excellent episode. 10 out of 10 as far as premieres go. And even though I was happy to see Hugáceo win, my hottest goes to Carmen. Moving into episode 2, we've got the Divas Girls Group Challenge and a runway tribute to La Veneno. I've got one thing to say. Girl. Divas Challenge? Maybe a little questionable. But let's start with the positives. I think the second group made up of Killer, Sagittaria, Carmen, and Hugáceo were clearly better than the first, but both groups were lacking choreography and auto-tune. I was like, girl, where is the auto-tune? I got the feeling that they wrote their lyrics, raw dog recorded them over that track, and then performed them all in the same day. For example, it seemed like some queens didn't even know their own lyrics, like Sagittaria, and when they weren't performing, queens were just kind of randomly vibing in the background. But since there were issues like that in both groups, I really don't think it was any of the queens' fault. It just kind of seemed like they didn't give them enough time to rehearse. However, I think the runway really saved this episode. It was a tribute to the Spanish LGBTQ plus icon La Veneno. And just to give you a brief idea of her cultural relevance, back in '96, she contributed to over 90 episodes of a talk show called Esa Noche Cruzamos el Mississippi, which was hosted by a man named Pepe Navarro and reached like 8 million viewers. And yes, I know 8 million views doesn't sound like that much because because like that's 1/5 of like what one Mr. Beast YouTube video gets, but I want to remind you that's a large number for televised programs. And this number would have been like 1/5 of Spain's entire population back in '96. So for her to be telling her story and living her life out loud and in the open, in the public eye like that was immeasurably good for the queer community at that time and through today. In conclusion, La Veneno, we stand. As far as what the queens wore, some queens like Pupi and Dovima wore recreations of La Veneno's iconic outfits, while other queens like Vulcano, Inti, and Carmen took their runways to more metaphorical artistic places. And technically speaking, this was supposed to be a tribute runway, and I think there is room for debate about the nuance of exactly what a tribute is, but personally, I think a good recreation definitely falls under that umbrella. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right? And the top this week, all things considered, we have Carmen and Pupi. Concerning them, I definitely agree with Carmen. She was a standout from her divas group, and that runway is immaculate. Stunning. Instantly iconic. On her Instagram, Carmen writes that her tribute honors La Veneno in multiple ways. The naked body is representing La Veneno's vulnerability to the public eye, the crown representing her status as a queen, and the snake wrapped around her body represents a couple of things. Primarily, of course, that La Veneno means like poison or venom girl, and then also that a snake sheds its skin, much like how La Veneno had to shed her skin to become her true self in the end. So like, this was not only deep, thoughtful, and artistic, but just amazing to look at. As for Pupi though, I have more neutral feelings. I think it was a little bit difficult for me to evaluate these performances overall because I think a lot of the lyrics kind of flew over my head as an English speaker, but I can definitely agree that she was the most charismatic and professional of her group. As for her runway, Pupi wore a recreation of an outfit that La Veneno wore on a talk show after her return to the public eye following a stint in prison. The similarities are striking. I think this is definitely hot. As for our bottom queens, we have Vulcano, Inti, and Arantxa, and yeah, all of their performances were lacking fuego. Worse than her performance though, Arantxa's runway was just confusing. I was doing research online and I was like, this doesn't make any sense or represent La Veneno in any way that I can tell. But Vulcano's outfit, who she lip-synced against, was okay, wow. This bitch heard tribute and she went there. She became the tribute. She's literally a shrine for La Veneno. And the outer shawl that she was wearing at the beginning of the runway was actually a tribute to La Veneno's biography book cover. Anyways, it turns out it's kind of difficult to lip sync in 12-inch platforms and Drag Vulcano is sent home. And concerning that elimination, I will say it's really interesting to see such a polished queen get sent home against someone who presents as a relative newbie. However, we've kind of seen the same thing over and over from Vulcano. While her looks were undeniably stunning, it's just like she's copy and pasting themes. We've got 12-inch platforms, bodysuit, cape, headpiece. And if there's one thing I've really been getting from these episodes, is that the judges are really looking for these contestants to step outside of their own boxes, which she hadn't. My hottest hot of the episode, duh, Carmen. And moving in episode 3, we have some drama, some controversy. Things are starting to get heated. In the man challenge, our queens are put into pairs, representing stereotypes, I guess, of Spanish culture. We've got abuelas, bilingües, hookers, glamorosas, and chungas to model for a magazine cover, run on a treadmill, and also do an improv sketch. And on the runway, queens wore looks representing their roots, inspired, of course, by Supreme's wigs. This again, I admit, was another difficult challenge for me as an English speaker, I think mostly because of the nuance of what these stereotyped groups of women were supposed to represent. For example, chungas, the stereotype given to Pupi and Hugáceo, was confusing for me because they just translated that to nasty girls, which doesn't really have any like cultural connotation as far as I know in English, and then they were just kind of dressed like punk goths. My favorite pair was actually abuelas, which was given to Arantxa and Killer Queen. They only placed safe, and I would say that they were a bit raw, but they also had the worst runways of the entire group. Killer's was trying to do 10 things at once, and then Arantxa's was a little cheesy. Sagittaria and Pupi are a great top 2 though. I think they were both standouts in their respective little groups that they had. Plus their runways were both phenomenal. Sagittaria did, I guess, what like an American audience would see as creme brulee or flan, and Pupi's was like a strawberry tree on top of her head. These are definitely the best looks served by each of these queens so far in this competition. I would have been fine with either of them taking it, but Sagittaria does win. Dovima and Inti also had really great runways, but poor challenge performances. On the runway, Dovima did an homage to La Diada de Saint Jordi, who is a knight in Catalonian folktale that had to defeat a dragon to save his princess. And the rose that Dovima is carrying grew out of the blood from the slayed dragon. It's gorgeous. And then Inti's runway is inspired by Diablada at Carnaval in Bolivia. She says this look is something her people, the indigenous population of the area, would have worn to scare away settlers. And there's no denying it not only is beautiful, but is also a beautiful statement. Even the judges ooh and ah over it when she hits the stage. Ultimately though, when it comes down to the critiques, Anna starts critiquing Inti for doing too much on the runway. Inti doesn't receive this critique well, and she kind of says something to the effect of like, damned if I do, damned if I don't. I can understand from like, I guess, a fashion perspective what Anna was trying to say about there being a lot going on with Inti's look, but at the same time, it was a look that was important to her culture, so it's kind of hard to critique something like that from the same way that you would critique a classical fashion runway. In my opinion, I think they could have just focused the critique purely on Inti's challenge performance and still had plenty of reason to put her in the bottom. Both Dovima and Inti have been struggling to break out of their shells. Based on the critiques, it's clear both of these queens would have been in the bottom, but Inti makes the decision to leave the competition before she lip syncs. In my initial reaction to this, I was shocked and kind of annoyed. I was like, Inti, I really wanted you to lip sync. Because on one hand, Drag Race is a competition. I think contestants should be prepared for the reality of receiving negative critiques. And then I thought about it for a while and kind of realized, you know what? I mean, this is her art, and I think art should be uncompromising. It's clear she felt the judges weren't seeing her, and I can definitely understand her wanting to just exit the situation before she gave the judges another chance to judge her. So at the end of it, yeah, I respect her decision. Plus, she made great TV. I think this is an exit from Drag Race that is never going to be forgotten. And this is where some post-show drama comes in. The truth, if you will. Inti has posted an updated version, I guess you could say, of this look with less clothes on under the cape, covered in blood. On Twitter, somebody replied to this look basically saying, I liked your original, but this one with the blood is cooler. And Inti replied to that saying, if you only knew. She also has tweeted, but has since deleted, something along the lines of, it'll be 4 years until I can tell you all everything. Possibly referring to her contract? I think it's safe to say there's definitely some like bad blood concerning her and the show, or like her and the producers or something, because these tweets are kind of spicy. But like, what do they mean? I don't know. Possibly that maybe her original idea for this runway wasn't approved and she had to change it, and then they didn't end up liking what she changed it to, so that's why she got frustrated? Or maybe there's something even deeper. I don't know. I'm just speculating based on what I've seen online. So she leaves, and Dovima lip syncs by herself, joining the likes of Sister Sister and Jada Essence Hall. I kind of have a feeling this is just the beginning for Dovima. And Inti. Oh, and my hottest hot on this runway goes to Dovima. As for my final thoughts, I'm loving Drag Race España. This is the first international season I feel has really cracked the code. I guess they talked to Sasha Bell. I think they have it all. Phenomenal judges, an excellent cast, and great storytelling. Is it worth watching? Absolutely. I don't know that I'm gonna have time to episodically hot or rot every single episode from this season. I may do some more videos on the topic, but I definitely will be reacting to every single episode and uploading those reactions to my Patreon. So if you wanna see my raw, uncut reactions and watch along with me, then you can watch on my Patreon at patreon.com/BussyQueen. That's my members only website where you get tons of exclusive Bussy Queen benefits like early access to my videos, exclusive videos, access to the Bussy Queen Discord server, and more. See you there. I wanna say thanks to you for watching this video, and also give a special shout out to Aiden Smith, Ali Al, Anna Miriam, Anthony, August Everywhere, B-Rolls, Bradley, Cameron, Cherry Poppins, Christopher, Clea Moosdale, Deutsche Leather, Dr. Martin, Evan, Fabio, Fractalize, GJ Bearclaw, Got the Morbs, Jay, Jenny, Janex, Jonah, Johnny, Kiki and John, Madam Muffy, Markowitz, Maddie Morissette, Millennial Hissy Fit, Nathan, Opal, Pasquale Nava, Queen Sassy Canista, Ron, Shannon, Chazzy, Sky, Tammy, Thomas, Timotheus, Timothy, Tony, Unique Vendetta, and Really, who are all supporting me on Patreon at my hottest hot tier, and Angel, Caroline, Cyrus, Felicia, Gody P, JB, Joseph, JP in Dallas, Laura, Nurse Luca, Matthew, Mike, Robert Reeves, Scooby Snacks, Sailor, Steven, Tom Jaco, Tom Young, and Triton, who are all supporting me at my Bussy Queen Collector tier. See y'all later. Love ya. Bye.